As Minecraft evolves, collecting mobs becomes easier and easier. So why not gather Minecraft's most rare and illegal mobs? Now, the first mob on the list is a killer bunny, which is only obtainable in the 1 version 14W28A and has a 1 in 2500% chance of spawning. So, finally! And to now be able to trap this guy, we quickly gotta transfer him over to the main world, using a remarkably handy program called MCA Selector. And if you were wondering what's so special about this little guy, it's that he has a slightly darker hint of red in his eyes. And that he wants to brutally murder me! But now we just need a home to put him in. Yeah, this looks pretty sick. Now stepping on, we have to build his cage. And I'm going to be customizing the cages differently for each mob we gather. So for this bunny, I just built a plain spine with some blood on the ground. You know, because killer bunny, blood, okay. Now the next mob is a zombie. That is a little bit larger than normally. Just a little. And to get it, we first gotta jump straight on over to the infinite dimension snapshot. Gear up and enter dimension C. And in this interesting dimension, we should be able to find a giant. Yeah, he's pretty large. But you know what they say, size doesn't matter. Except in this case, because I gotta build a portal that fits this guy. Now I just gotta push him through it. So I then can transfer him over to the main world. It actually worked. So let's quickly build up his cage, which is going to be dungeon themed. So we then can move over to zombie, using a literal minecart. So let's now just bring him over. No! Yes! And that's the zombie trapped. And although it might not look like much, as the video goes on, the mobs will get wilder and wilder, getting some that literally break the game. With the giant zombie trapped, I now want to get the upside down villager on a chicken. But since we've already gathered the villager on a chicken from our previous video, we just quickly gotta move it all the way over. And I forgot to build his cage. So if we now just bring him into his cage and name tag him Dinnerbone, he will then turn upside down for the rest of eternity. Now moving swiftly on, I want to gather 3 different mobs which are all from the same version. So for this, we'll head on over to the 1 block at a time update. Because in this version, you can, believe it or not, throw a few special blocks like a barrel and a carved pumpkin onto evokers and wandering traders. So to first get the carved pumpkin for the evoker, I gotta head on over to our ruined portal to get a flint and steel. And yes, I am currently flying on a chicken. That took way too many hours. And now we simply just gotta fly over to our desert village and place the fire down, then head over them back, and now I finally have to find the pumpkin and then shear it and break it. Okay, so maybe I had to do a little bit more than just find a desert village. So with the pumpkin, we now just gotta travel to the Woodlands mansion. And this time I actually decided to use a seed map. And now I just gotta throw this pumpkin on an evoker without dying. That's an evoker. If we just throw this on his head and then quickly transport him without dying. Okay, got him! Run away, transfer! Whew. That was close. Now for the wandering trader, I gotta get back to the village to get a barrel. And while we wait for the trader to spawn, we're going to get the 3rd and final mob of this version, the wolf stack. Because in this version, you can actually stack mobs on top of each other. So to completely abuse this mechanic, I'm going to create the largest wolf stack and probably the only wolf stack you've ever seen. Now let's quickly set up a breeding chamber, so we then can make a mass murdering machine. Which ended up being completely useless, since you can't breed in this update. And all those animals, let's just call it natural selection. Now this means that I'm gonna have to walk around capturing them instead. And now stack them on top of each other. With that, we just now need to transfer it. Now, if we just wait a little bit longer, the wandering trader should spawn. And if we now throw a barrel on it, it turns into a barrel trader. So let's just transfer it back and build up the 3 cages for these guys. Wait, this is actually starting to look sick. Let's now just bring them all over here. And that's the 3 1 block at a time mobs. Yeah, the wandering trader despawned, so I replace him with a normal one. Now, to get the next mob, we quickly gotta make our way over to 1.8.9. Wait for it to get dark, and now we have to find a mob with full armor on. That actually didn't take too long. And if we now upgrade a world to something after 1.9, the mob will hold the armor pieces in his hands, which was most likely caused by the change of combat in 1.9. So let's just transfer it to the main world. And with 7 illegal mobs to my name, I now want to gather the triple strider. And since they don't exist anymore, keyword anymore, we have to travel back in time to 20W17A and get to the nether. Because in this version, and this version only, there's a very rare chance that the strider can stack higher than 2. And now I just have to find one. Wait, that's actually a triple strider. Now I just gotta get it through this portal. So I then can wait, why is it flying away? Anyways, let's just transfer them over and build a cage, which is pretty obviously going to be nether themed. And then we can just put him in his cage. Now the next mob up is a wither skeleton spider jockey, and to get it, I'll first have to head on over to 11W49A, so I then can get spider spawner eggs. And you may wonder how. Yeah, so if you press B in this update, they literally just give you the creative menu. So now I'm just gonna rob them of some eggs. And I'm obviously not going to take any of these back to the main world. But if we now transfer these eggs to 1.10.2, these spider spawn eggs will have a 1% chance of spawning a normal skeleton spider jockey. But in this version, there's a 80% chance that the skeletons turn into wither skeletons if you're inside of the nether. So this leaves us with a spawn rate of 1 in 125. So it looks like I'm gonna be killing spiders for a while. Yes, there we go. And let's try not to die. But let's now just transfer him. And that's the wither skeleton spider jockey trapped. Next up, I want to get a zombie piglin without a sword. So if we head on over to Minecraft's 2013 April Fool's update, in which there's literally talking blocks, weird looking animals, and time ticking bombs. But the zombie pigments in this update holds a sign for some weird reason. So if we lure this guy to the overworld and then transfer him, the sign will then get deleted, leading us to the only way that I'm pretty sure of obtaining a friendly zombie pigman. Now, before we move on to the next mob, I quickly want to mention that if you're watching this video in the first couple of months of me uploading, you still have a chance to subscribe before I hit 5k. It's been a dream of mine ever since I uploaded my first video over 9 years ago. So if you want to make my childhood dream come true, please consider subscribing, it will mean a lot. Now the next two mobs are the wither and stray skeleton horse jockeys. And to get the wither type, we gotta move over to beta 1.9, get a ton of glass and build a giant glass platform. And then if I go AFK until lightning strikes out a skeleton trap, which then floats into the nether. That literally took me 23 hours! But if I now head on through to the nether, the trap will activate and a wither skeleton will spawn. So now we just transfer him. Now for the stray horse, I once again have to wait for a thunderstorm to strike. Locate a skeleton horse trap and then dig a... oh my god. And then dig a hole for him. If I then place powdered snow on his head and wait, he will then turn into a stray skeleton horse jockey. So let's now just build 2 cages for these guys. And that's the 2 skeleton horses trapped. So for the next 3 mobs, I want to trap the hardest mobs in the whole of Minecraft, the 3 bosses. So to first get the wither, we obviously have to get 3 skulls. So... there we go. And to now get him to stay in place, I'm going to be using barrier blocks, which I've gotten from a previous video. So let's just spawn it in and move on to the warden. But before we trap it, I gotta... it's for the warden, I swear. Now to get the warden up here, I gotta dig this tunnel. So I then can connect to a water elevator and make it chase me back to the cage. Yeah, this is probably the most dangerous thing I've ever done in this world. Oh my god! That might just have been the most stressful thing I've ever experienced. But thank god, that's the warden trapped. So to now get the ender dragon, we first gotta go back to the 1 block at a time version that we were in earlier. Because in the end here, you can literally fly the dragon for some reason. And if we fly him into the void, we'll get teleported to the overworld. Yeah, but to actually trap him, I gotta head on over to 15W47C and build a pillar with a boat on top. Because if I then transfer the Ender Dragon, it's gonna get stuck in the boat. So let's now just transfer this pillar back to the main world. And now I have to get this guy to his cage. But since I can't get close to the dragon, I'm gonna have to move it with flying machines. So let's just firstly push it up and then... Oh! Well, that could have gone better. Okay, so let's do it a bit more safe this time. But before we drop him, I obviously have to build his cage. There we go. So let's now just drop him. Why is he backwards? Well, this looks so sick. The Warden, Ender Dragon, and Wither all next to each other. Now the next two mobs are the Drowned and Piglin on a Chicken. And to first get the adult Drowned on a Chicken, I gotta go back in time to 18W16A and locate a spawner. If I then make it into a farm with water at the bottom, the zombies will then turn into drowns, leaving it to a 1 in 500% chance of a Drowned on a Chicken spawning. So now I just go AFK. Oh my god, there it finally is. That took me so long. So let's just transfer him. To now get the Piglin on a Chicken, I have to go to 20W11A, gear up and build this gigantic farm in the nether. So then I have to wait on a pillar, high up in the sky, or whatever this is called. And what this farm basically does is that it produces a ton of piglins, which will then walk through these two portals and end up in this glass cage. When they're zombified in the overworld, they'll have a 1 in 600% chance of spawning on a chicken. But let's go and see if we got him one. Yes! So let's just transfer him, and I forgot to build their cages. Okay, let's just bring them in and move on to the next mobs, which is Minecraft's two most illegal horses, starting with a zombie horse, which is of course not obtainable in Minecraft Hardcore. But if we head back to the same version that we got the giant from earlier in the video, the Infinite Dimension, but instead this time throw a book with Q3 written inside of it, we'll then get into this weird dimension. And if we head to this biome and build a large grass platform with tons of lighting, we can then just go up here and wait. This might take a while. So, why don't zombie horses ever win races? Because they keep coming dead last. But I mean, at least we got their horse, am I right? Okay, let's just move on to the second horse, which is the God Horse, which you'll see why it's called soon. So to get it, we gotta go back to Minecraft 3D Shower Update. This is sick. It's like a 2D game instead of a 3D game. Just look at this inventory. Or not, since I can choose to remove the screen. But if I type in nerd, oh, I just spawned in a creeper. Okay, maybe it was power overwhelming. I think I might have accidentally just became immortal. That's something you don't hear every day. Okay, what about how do you turn this on? Yes! So as you can see, this horse is pretty fast. And if I now do a quick transfer, I now have the most OP horse in the whole of Minecraft. And I somehow gotta get him to his cage. There we go. Now next up, I wanna trap a literal wizard. Basically. Now if we head back to the same dimension as we got the zombie horse from, we then just have to walk around looking for him. There he is, a literal wizard. What is going on? Let's just transfer him before I die. And let's, you already know the drill, build his cage. And that's the illusioner trapped. To now acquire the last two mobs, I'm not going to be constrained by the boundaries of the past and present, and instead travel to the future, to the new snapshot 24W20A, because in this snapshot, there's two new mobs that I gotta trap, and yes, I'm talking about the Bogged and Breeze. So let's start with the air shooting Breeze, which can only be found in the new added trial chambers. So with some help from my best friend Seed Map, I am now here, but let's now try to find one. There it is! Now we just gotta bring it up this massive staircase and then put it in its cage, which I had to do in this version since it doesn't have any files back in the other one. And that is also why it turned out so good looking. Now before we get the last and final mob, the Bogged, I'd just like to let you know that I have a Discord server. So if you ever wanted to ask me a question or just like people to talk to, it's linked in pinned comment and in description. And to now get the final mob, the Bogged, I have to go to a swamp. since that's one of the only places that it spawns. And if you don't know what a bogd is, it's basically just like the stray, but he shoots poisonous arrows instead of slowness. But let's build up his cage. And since it's now night, we can now go looking for him. There he is! So let's now lure him into the cage. And that's the final mob trapped. And after spending months on capturing Minecraft's most illegal mobs, I can now say with confidence that even though the illegal mobs might be way cooler than the normal ones, we still gotta appreciate what's in the game today. Because you never know when Mojang is gonna remove it from you.